just shut it so that there's a noise barrier. Since you're over there. Yeah.
All right, so welcome to ATGenius. I'd like to thank you guys for using our system. I want to first just tell you a little bit about us and how we started. I've been working as an athletic trainer in a high school setting for a long time, since 1992, and been very active in the profession in various ways. I was once president of the Athletic Trainer Society in New Jersey, and I've served on the NATA Secondary School Committee and done a bunch of other things. And my brother Brandon has been doing web design for a long, long time. He does websites for everything from real estate to car dealerships, and he's done some athletic training specific ones. He's done some things for NATA District 2 and the Eastern Athletic Trainers Association and our local athletic trainer society in New Jersey. So he's got a lot of experience doing coding and web design. So we teamed up and we actually started ATGenius, at least the thoughts of it, in about, I would say 2013, 14, give or take. And then we kind of put it on the back burner. And then in 2016, we really committed to it and got it up and running. So we're relatively new on the EMR scene, but we're really growing, and it's been very exciting for us to see the program grow across the country. So we're literally being used by hundreds of schools and clinics, colleges, high schools, all across the country. So it's been fun. So what I'd like to first do is just take you to our test account. Does anybody here watch The Office?
Yes.
All right, good. We got some Office characters in our test account. So when you first log in, you're going to see some alerts. So if you start a SOAP note and don't sign it, and it sits there for 7 days, an alert's going to pop up to remind you to sign the SOAP note. So that's the default, 7 days. You can change that if you want. And if you have equipment that you've loaned out and put in our system, it will remind you after a week if that hasn't been returned. And also, if you have some open cases in which you haven't given that note any attention in a week or more, it will also alert you. So our test account sometimes is a little messy with a lot of alerts because we don't really maintain it that closely like we should. I mean, we do demos like this and enter a record in and never really follow up with it. So you'll see a lot of attentions in here. But I'm going to go to just adding a new injury and walk you through that. So I think we have Michael Scott in here. So we go to Michael Scott. We can see his previous injuries, and if it's locked, that means that's been signed and locked. You can't alter that record. You can't delete it, but you can add on to it progress notes and discharge notes and things like that. And you'll see also if that patient has been discharged or not discharged from your care. So if we're going to add a new injury, and let's just say it's foot and ankle, you have 3 choices here, and this will depend on your style and level of detail that you want. I tend to use the open soap more than the guided soap because I think it's faster, but the guided soap is a very detailed soap note. And for major injuries, I tend to use that more. But for day-to-day injuries, I tend to use more of the open soap. But all of these fields in the opening screen are optional except the date of injury. So we do have to pick that. Anything with a red outline is required. And if you want to run reports later, it's advisable that you do fill in sport level, field location, because it's going to pull that information for your reports. That you may want to run on how many football injuries or how many injuries happen on a certain field and so forth. But you can skip it and get right into it. If you're on your phone out on the field, you can just put the date in and get right into the SOAP note. So I'm going to just quickly take you through the SOAP note. So under subjective, of course, we're clicking right or left side, a pain level, and then if this person inverted their ankle, we'll just put something very quick and easy for their history. you can type that in there. And then when you go to objective, this is the main difference for the guided SOAP. Is a lot of detail under your objective tab. So if you point tender to ATFL, and if we notice some mild limping or some swelling, we can check that off. But everything is checkbox oriented in the guided SOAP. So we have some of our subscribers ask for this level of detail for range of motion. So we can check various things if we have a specific range of motion that we want to enter. So if, let's say their active plantar flexion, they only had 20 degrees. We can specify that in there if you would like. And then some of the other things that are within normal limits, you can note that. And then your strength testing on a scale of 1 or 0 through 5, you can indicate that there. And then your neurological and circulation. I'll just click off a couple WNLs for that. And then your special test. So if there's a special test that you use that we have missed and is not in here, that occasionally happens when we get that request, you can certainly let us know and we can add that in. But this is not customizable. You'd have to request a special test to be added, which we have done. But you can go through here and just say if their anterior drawer was positive or Clager's negative, percussion negative, things like that. And then this little up arrow here, you can quickly go back to the top. Now with assessment, instead of having a drop down of a million different diagnoses to choose from, we figure it's just faster to type in. So let's just say grade 1 ATFL sprain. And this here is for labeling this injury in lay-friendly terms for reports that you run later. So for example, if you run a coach's report, it's not going to pick up the jargon of grade 1 ATFL in the coach's report. It's going to pick up how you labeled it in this drop-down. So this drop-down is customizable if we miss something. We didn't realize we missed tooth fracture or tooth dislocation. I think one of those, we forgot to put that in, but it comes now with the system. But you can add things to this drop-down or change that for your lay-friendly terms for reports under account settings. And then when we go to plan, a little more detail here in the guided SOAP, but let's just say we're going to do some cryotherapy, we're going to do some rehab exercises. Their participation status, maybe Michael Scott is limited right now with his ankle. And then any communication, if you want to document that you notified the coach or notified the parent, you can do that there. And then some states require these other fields. That's why they're in there. You can skip them if you don't want to do them. But some states in the rules and regs require an estimated return to sport, an estimated treatment frequency, estimated treatment duration, and some goals. So an easy measurable goal would be decreased in pain from 5 to 3, and we can pick maybe by the end of the week, we want to decrease the pain. So it's picking up the 5 from that subjective tab that I entered 5 for the pain level. I like to use is I supervise KD athletic training students, so I like to teach them a little bit about estimating return to play, because that's all coaches want to know. So I try to teach our KD students to accurately estimate return to play time. So we do use this for the guided SOAP for our KD students. So anyway, back to the top. I can click save, which means save for later. By the way, the system, because of HIPAA, it will automatically log you out if it sits idle for a few minutes. So that's for confidentiality reasons. So if you're going to walk away, make sure you click save. And this record can still be edited. It can still be deleted. So if this ankle, we're not quite sure what we're doing with it, maybe we're going to sit on it for a day and see if we're going to get x-rays tomorrow, depending on how it looks. You can just click save and then revisit it tomorrow. But ultimately, you want to sign and lock it and make that record permanent, which you would click here, and that would sign and lock that record, making it permanent. I want to just go back. Notice there's no more tab here yet. The more tab allows you to add additional things to your SOAP note, but not until it's signed and locked. If you supervise athletic training students, KD students, I don't know if anyone's a preceptor, they can have their own login, but instead of seeing sign and lock, it will say send to preceptor, and then you as a preceptor would receive it, review it, and then sign and lock it. So that's the guided SOAP. So I'm going to go back to our main page here and just go to search Michael Scott, and we can see the unlocked record here that you can delete. I'm just going to show you how you can delete that record that we just created by clicking that X button, and that record I just made is gone. If we're doing the open SOAP, I'm just going to show you that very quickly. Let's just say we go to hip and thigh, click open SOAP, same opening screen. We'll click an injury date. And then, like I said, I prefer the open SOAP because it's a little faster, but the subjective tab is the same. The objective tab is, there's no check boxes. So you would have typed in a narrative if they were point tender over their MCL or a negative Lockman's test or whatever you're writing. You just need to type that out in a narrative form here instead of clicking off special tests or range of motion like the guided SOAP. The assessment tab is the same. Don't forget to label it for reports in a lay-friendly term. And then the plan is a little shorter. Again, this is more based on a narrative description. So you would just type out your plan, their participation status, communication. So some of this is similar to the guided SOAP. The one last thing I want to show you, I'm just going to back up here to the short note. Same opening screen. The short note is designed for just a one-pager. If you have a minor injury, the example I commonly use is an elbow contusion or a lower leg contusion. That's not really quite worth getting involved in writing up a whole SOAP about. You can just put something very brief in the short note and then go through some of these items here to document the injury in some way, but it helps you get in and out very quickly. If you have your ankle sprain or an ACL tear or anything more significant, we recommend you do the guided or the SOAP note so you have your detailed evaluation notes in there. So I'm going to stop there before we go on to concussions. If there are any questions on SOAP notes. Okay. So, Kelly, what are you guys doing currently for concussion documentation? Are you guys using SCATs?
You guys want to answer that? So we test with C3 Logics right now, but we're going to be going back to Impact, not this school year, but next school year. And then there's a SCAT built into it and a symptom log and that's it. Built into it. That's what they used last year. This year with this system, we'll probably use an actual concussion note in there and fill it out.
Okay.
So they do the CRT5 and a kind of a quick scan on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, like a day or two later, they'll do a SCAT5 in a distraction-free environment and then go from there.
Okay. How about you guys, Blaze? Are you using the SCAT?
Yeah, we're in a really rural area of Missouri, so we don't have any physicians that are really, I would say, big into concussions. So we're doing a SCAT5 since it's kind of the standard. We also do a King Divic along with that. And then we do have a Neurocom machine that schools that want to, we will do a balance pad test just to kind of get a baseline on that as well. But some schools choose not to do baseline testing, but either way, we use a SCAT5 as our go-to gold star for any concussion evaluation we're going to do.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to, let's say, Oscar Martinez, and we're going to add injury here for concussion. So we named this concussion evaluation on purpose, not concussion, because just because you're evaluating for concussion, we don't want to lock you in and calling it that. They could just have a contusion naturally. But when you get into this, you have three choices. You can use our concussion evaluation in the system, which is very SCAT-like. If you happen to complete a paper SCAT and you want to upload that into the system, you can do that. Or The scenario I typically explain is, let's say someone was injured with a concussion on a Friday night at an away game, sees the doctor over the weekend. Maybe it's Tuesday by the time they see you. And by that point, you may or may not decide it's worth doing a scat since he or she's so far out from the injury. You may just be presented with a doctor's note that says, patient is concussed, please file return to play protocol. And you can just upload that doctor's note to get this process started. But the reason I'm stopping at this screen is because you have to pick one of these three things to move forward with the concussion evaluation. So I'm going to pick our concussion evaluation. And again, same opening screen here, just picking out the date. And a lot of the ideas we get, like this thing here with where you indicate the head impact area, was not our idea. We get many ideas from our athletic trainers who use the system. So if you guys have ideas, we're always encouraging you to share them with us. We just need to be careful that, whatever we add applies to everybody. So we just need to make sure whatever suggestion has universal application to all of our users. But if you needed to spin this around to the other side, you just click this little thing at the top. And we're going to click next. And then it's a similar layout to the SOAP note. So this is the history section we're looking at here. So if they have a learning disability, that you can indicate their history of migraines or headaches, you can indicate that here. And then the signs and symptoms is very similar to what you're probably accustomed to with some questions. Let's just say they have a vacant stare or answering questions slowly for signs. And you can, of course, put any comments here. And then your symptoms are scored 0 through 6. So I'm just going to check off a few of these so you can see how this works. And that is the signs and symptoms area. When we get to exam, there's more here than you'll probably use, but we try to appeal to everyone's different styles and what they ask for. So you can just pick and choose what sections that you want to use depending on your approach with evaluating concussions. But, you got your classic what day of the week it is, or who you're playing today. Up front, you have your word memory, your 3 trials here that you can go through with them, and all your coordination and balance tests. So again, more than you probably will use, but we can have our double leg balance, our tandem, our single leg, Romberg's, the classic is in there if you still use that. And then, of course, our months backwards tests where you can indicate how many errors they've made. You can time them if you want to track that, how quickly they can do it. And the numbers backwards, which I find in many cases, unconcussed people can't get through past the second trial of this, but you can document your numbers backwards. Some of our members still want a cranial nerve assessment, so that's in there. And of course, a lot of people ask for the VOMS assessment. So you got your ocular and vestibular evaluation here, a short area for a neck exam, and then the delayed memory test that we're supposed to ask about 10 minutes later or so is here. So that's under the exam area. Assessment is straightforward. We're just going to call this a concussion. We select concussion from our drop down because that's lay friendly enough. And then our plan, usually they're going to do one of two things. They're going to follow the return to play protocol, or they're going to do something different where maybe they're not cleared yet to begin anything until they see the doctor back. So you can put any comments here that are specific to that patient. If they're concussed, they're naturally going to be out. And then any communication. So at our school, we notify a lot of people with concussion. Our AD wants to know about all of them, so we let our AD know, our coaches know. Our athletic secretary also tracks them too, because if someone gets concussed at the end of football season and they don't follow through on the return to play, and now they're going out for wrestling season, they're on a list in the athletic office that they're not going to be placed on a roster. So we're fortunate that our athletic secretary keeps great track of kids who are not following through on the return to play protocol. So anytime someone is concussed and when they're cleared, we notify all these people here. So that is the plan section for concussion. And I want to show you, I'm going to pick my daughter. I always tell everybody my daughter's Miranda, and let's see if she's still in here. She watches the Kardashians all the time, but maybe she's not in here now. I'm not finding her for some reason. Bear with me. Oh, there she is. All right. So Miranda Kardashian loves to watch the Kardashians. Anyway, I'm trying to find an older concussion for her. Let's see here. We'll go with this one. So one of the nice things is that once you sign and lock a concussion record, you have this More tab, which I'm going to show you still on our SOAP note what this More tab does. But once you sign and lock a record, you have this More tab appear. And one of the favorite things that our subscribers really like is this symptom checklist. So in the days following the concussion, you can send this to your patient by text to complete. And this works out well if they're concussed and they're still at home, but you still want to check in with them and how their symptoms are doing. You can send this to them to fill out. It does not reveal your cell phone number. They cannot respond to your text per se. They can only do the questionnaire. So just to show you what it looks like, it's going to look just like this on their phone where they go through and check off their symptoms here. And they click Save down here at the bottom. And you can see here it's going to show all of their symptom checklists. So the one I just added was right here, but it's going to have, if you can take a look at the one from 11.7, a red check if they have the symptom, a green check if they don't have the symptom, and then their score 1 through 6. And you can repeat this as often as needed for your follow-up symptom checklist. And with all of our reports, if you click this little mail icon in the lower right, you can email this specifically. You can email the whole concussion eval, but if you just want to specifically email their symptom checklist, you can do that. And sometimes I do that to send the coaches to show them that they're still symptomatic and what they're reporting to us. So that's the symptom checklist here. As far as the More tab, the other thing that I want to show you here is that you can do their return to play protocol and document that here. So we can see Miranda already has some steps in here. So let's just say Miranda's up to step 5, full contact practice. We can click Add Return Play Protocol. We can click today's date and then choose step. We'll choose step 5. And this drop down right here is customizable in your account settings. So if you're doing different things that are listed here for your concussion return to play protocol, you can change that up if you like. But say Miranda's up to her full contact practice, and maybe I want to save for later because maybe I'm seeing Miranda at 2:15 after school, giving her a note to coach that she can do full contact practice, but I'm telling her come back after practice so we can confirm that you're asymptomatic. I might save this record for later. That's why that option's there. But let's say she comes back at 5 o'clock and she's got no symptoms, and then I can sign and lock this record. So all of our concussion steps need to be individually signed and locked. And we do that because there's just so much liability today with athletic trainers and concussions. We want to make sure that you're signing each record. So if you think about, if you were doing this on paper and writing each step in each day, you would probably initial each step and date each step. The same idea here that we're requiring that. So if you get an alert that says you have unsigned records and you look at all your SOAPs and they're signed, then take a look at your return to play protocol. You probably have an unsigned step there. This More tab, the rest of this is similar to the SOAP note More tab, which I'm going to cover next. But you can see here, once you sign and lock a record, you have many options to add on to that record. But the two main things here again are symptom checklist and return to play protocol. Going back to Michael Scott, I'm going to find a signed and locked record. So this is his knee. So the More tab is here. And we could spend an hour just on the More tab, but I'm just going to show you quickly the main features here. So you could, if let's say you get a physician's note and you want to attach that, you can scan that into your computer and attach that to the patient's record through AdView Media. So you would go ahead and find that on your computer. I don't know what this doctor's note is. This is a Temple University bill. Okay. I just finished my DAT at Temple, so I probably put that in there as an example. I don't know why I chose that. But anyway, if you click Add Media, you can upload a doctor's note. And at my high school, we are completely paperless. When we get a doctor's note in, we scan it, we put it in ATGenius, and then we put it in a pile to be shredded. We have special education students that come down to our facility a few times a week, and we give them different jobs to do. And one of the things that they do, they really enjoy doing, is the shredding. But so we leave a shred pile for those students to take. Like I said, we don't do any filing anymore. If an athlete forgets to sign in, which I'm going to show you treatment sign in, you can sign them in yourself. Once you clear an athlete, you can add a discharge note. Now, some states require a reason for discharge. So that's why we have these check boxes here. We have the most common reasons for discharging an athlete from your care. If you come across a situation that we haven't covered, we can add that. For example, this visiting athlete transfer of care, or let's say an athlete transfers from a school and is no longer under your care. That was a new one we added for someone who requested that. But you can put the discharge note in and then change their status here. If they're a go as can, discharged, and then our system calculates their time loss. So you can backdate this. If they were cleared last week and you're just getting to your notes today, you can just backdate it, and that will affect this injury time loss calculation here. You can save that for later and sign and lock it. All right, so that's the discharge note. As far as the follow-up note, this was a suggestion from one of our subscribers. If you have a conversation with any of these people here, father, mother, guardian, coach, local physician, PT, and you want to document that conversation in ATGenius, this is where you would do it, through the follow-up note. Are you guys using any patient-reported outcome measures, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, which ones are you using?
Well, we want to. Sorry, we have not before, but we want to.
Okay. How about you, Blaze? You guys use them?
It's on the list once I get a few other things fixed in our program, is how I would word that. Hopefully within the next year, we are going to start using patient questionnaires.
Yeah, so the common ones out there, the DASH or the foot and ankle ability, the FAM, I think it's called. There's a quick FAM. Some of them are good. Some of them are not truly relevant to the high school or collegiate population. There might be questions about gardening or carrying a briefcase that aren't really relevant to a high school or college athlete. So we develop our own patient-reported outcome measures. And I don't know if you guys saw the email that we sent out, but the profession is trying to encourage us to use these more and more, but the barriers associated with their use is that they're maybe time consuming to score or confusing the score, or again, they're not relevant to the population that we deal with. So we've developed several of our own. And so clicking on the More tab, patient questionnaire, the nice thing about this is that you can send it to the athlete via text, and they complete that right on their phone, and it's scored automatically. So I'm going to click Complete Questionnaire. This is what it's going to look like on their phone. They can't skip any questions, by the way. So if they can't save it, they probably skipped one. But it's going to start out with some functional and activities of daily living questions. Sitting in class or stepping on and off a curb, getting in and out of a car, those types of questions. Sleeping, which is an important question, I think, to ask if this injury is affecting their sleep. And it gets into some sport-specific type movements if they're having any pain or difficulty with that. The questionnaire also asks the athlete's own readiness to participate estimation. So it's always interesting to see what the athlete thinks. Sometimes they could just tell you what they think you want to hear. I'll click 100%, but a lot of them I find are honest. I feel like I'm only at 70%. Okay, we can work with that. Their pain level, their changes since last visit, which is nice to see, and their progress overall. My injury is getting better. My injury is not getting better. My injury is staying the same. And then what's the highest level activity you think you can do at this time? And you go ahead and save that, and it scores it from up to 100%. And then you can repeat these as often as needed. And the nice thing about it is that you can use it not only to see what your treatment effectiveness is, but also to track any issues they're having. For example, one time, I give these out even after an athlete's been cleared to play. And I remember an athlete 2 weeks out after their ankle injury noted on that questionnaire that she was still having pain and problems and ankle stiffness. So I didn't realize that was still happening. So I'm glad I did it and we addressed that. So we have patient questionnaires available for multiple body areas. A progress note is just that. For example, here, Mike's pain was a 2 out of 10 today, began the bike, light rehab, and then it's going to be date and time stamped. And of course, you can email this to a coach or whomever if you want to. And that's a good way of just tracking someone's progress and documenting that. And any physician referrals that you do, you can put that in here. And then this drop down of healthcare providers is customizable in account, so you can put the docs that you normally refer to appear in this drop down. Now, Blaze, are you guys doing most of your rehab there at the high schools, or are they doing that in PT, in a clinic?
We're kind of split. A lot of our athletes will do I think any athlete that has what we term probably a longer rehab phase, three to 4 weeks or more, they're usually split between us and our physical therapy department through the hospital. So 2 days with them, 2 days with us. Kind of makes the PT department happy, but it keeps the parent happy with not having to drive every day. So we actually do that quite a bit, but anything under 4 weeks, we do most of the rehabs here at.
Okay. How about you guys, Kelly? Do you guys do physical any rehab at the high school?
They do for kind of the minor to moderate injuries, but the severe ones get referred out.
Okay. And we have a new person, Laura. Hi, Lauren. Thank you for joining us. The rehab card really started with just a paper version. Like when I had, we developed ATGenius, when I had an athlete who was going through some rehab, we would basically create a card, kind of like if you were new joining a gym, where if you were working with a personal trainer, they would give you a list of your weight training exercises and the sets and reps and things like that for you to walk around the gym so you knew what you were doing. Same idea here. We actually used to have a card that we would give the athlete, and they would just leave it in the room, and every time they would know what they needed to do. So this is just an electronic version of that idea. So this is really well liked by our subscribers. So you create a rehab card of list of exercises for your athlete to follow, and they can log in on their phone and do their exercises, and it's date and time stamped. And that way the athlete doesn't need to ask you every 2 minutes, what do I do next? I will tell you that for minor injuries that are going to get better in a week or so, I don't use this at the high school, but for like you guys say, from a moderate to long term. At my high school, even the post-op ACLs, we tend to work with all the way through because we're fortunate to have the staff and facility. But for moderate to long term, this really works well, and you can attach video and or images that will appear under the how-to. If you, for example, you put the sleeper stretch on your list of exercises and you go find an image or a YouTube video, you can put that in your library here in ATGenius and attach that under the how-to. So just to quickly show you, you click Edit Rehab, you name your exercise, your resistance, your sets, reps. If you have something in your library, you choose your video and your images here that will appear with the how-to, and then you can see the exercises here from your view. And then, like I said, you just need to make sure your athlete has an account where they can log in and they can follow along. This really works extremely well. We also have an ability in account options to create rehab card templates for common injuries. So you can create one for ankle sprains that's always there ready to be pulled into someone's account. So that way you don't have to create a brand new ankle rehab card for every ankle sprain you see. You create the template, you pull it into the athlete's file so it's ready to go, and you can just tweak it as needed for that patient. Couple other things here, just so you know, once a record is locked, we don't like to unlock it for you to make changes. In extreme circumstances, we allow that, but a lot of the rules and regs we follow indicate for various states that once you sign and lock something electronically, you cannot go back in and ask to change it. So we're very careful about that, but if there's something extreme case, we occasionally will do that. Of course, you can send reports by email. And the watch pile is the example I commonly give. You see somebody with shin pain. You're not sure if a stress fracture is brewing. You evaluate them. Maybe you're letting them participate in a limited basis. And you want to remind yourself to check on that patient a week or so later to make sure that they're not getting worse. You can add them to the watch pile. And that would simply just show an alert after a week that person needs to be checked. I used to do this by paper. When I would write up a SOAP note, and I would say to myself, I want to remind myself to check on this athlete in a week to make sure nothing's worsening. I'd put them in a little pile aside. And then once a week, I would go through them. So that's kind of how this idea was brought about. All right, I'm going to stop there just to see if there's any questions what I've covered so far before we do treatment sign-in.
We're good.
Okay. All right. So just so I get an idea of what you guys are doing, Kelly, are you guys having athletes sign in any way in the high schools for their treatments?
So this is went back and forth. Initially it was a paper system, and then with HIPAA they removed it. And so we would like to, because I think it would track the importance of the trainers, but it needs to be an easy system.
Okay.
And have the ability to be kept private so other kids can't see who all's been in and why.
Right.
Yeah, like if they can see a list of names, that's probably not as big of a deal, but they can't
Even
see
that,
why.
though, they can say, oh, so-and-so went and saw the trainer. Why'd they go? You know.
Well, but if
it's
they're
just
there
a
too, they're
rumor
gonna
mill.
see.
Yeah.
Right.
But really.
You're right, but
Okay. Blaze, how about you guys? Are you guys tracking treatments in the high schools?
Oh, we track treatments, but at this point, I'm instructing all of our athletic trainers to put them in manually. I worked at a college for several years, and our college athletes couldn't get it right. So I have even less faith about our high school athletes getting it right. So I just say, anytime they do a rehab or anything, they should be putting, notes in or something like that as part of good documentation. So I tell our athletic trainers to do it themselves.
Okay. Have you seen our printed coaches report that has been circulating?
Yeah.
Because I'll show you guys that too. That's how we try to enforce more accurate records. Lauren, if you're able to hear me, are you guys using treatment sign-in?
Hi, yeah, I'm actually I work for Logan Health, so I'm with Kelly and I work for
Oh,
her
okay.
or for the hospital. I'm just at home because I had to
Gotcha.
finish something else, so I logged in by myself instead of being
Okay.
there.
All right, gotcha. All right, so I think you guys will like our treatment sign-in, and no one sees each other's sign-ins, and it is pretty easy for the athletes. So I know, Kelly, you had asked a question about having an iPad. So pre-COVID, at our high school, we would have 3 ways for them to sign in. We would have an iPad mounted on the wall. We would have an iPad in an OtterBox that we would pass around the room as they were getting taped or treated. and then we would have the QR code. So between the three of those, we caught most of our sign-ins. So I'm back to ATGenius.com. I'm just going to click Treatment Sign-In. So this is the screen that we would leave up on the iPad on the wall the whole time. So they would just need to know their school code, which you're going to set, and their last name and their date of birth, and then they sign in. So the test account school name is Bulldogs. I'm going to enter my son's, wait, no, I should know my son's birth date. I'm going to enter my son's birth date in here because he's in as a test patient because I can always remember his birth date. Okay, so I'm Tyler Smith. My mascot name or school name is the Bulldogs. I put in my date of birth and then I click sign in. And then now as the athlete, this is what I'm seeing. I'm going to choose my sport as baseball. I'm going to click next. And then I'm going to scroll to what I'm in for. I'm in for my foot and ankle today. At the very top, if you have an athlete that's coming in for the same thing every day, they can just click repeat treatments from prior visit and then they're in and out. You could also add items to the quick list up top for common things that athletes are in for so they don't have to scroll. And as you go down here, you can see the categories. So the red category names you cannot change, but anything within the red categories you can change. So all of this can be customized other than the red category names. So let's just say Tyler was in for ankle taping. He was in maybe for some, let me just, maybe he was in for electric stim, and maybe he was in here for some therapeutic exercises. So at my high school, we use the term therapeutic exercises. Our students have learned that's what they check off when they get rehab, but you may want to change that to rehab if you want. We just use that proper term because it's more consistent with what we're supposed to be calling it and with CPT codes and things like that. So as you go through here, they can check all these things off and back to the top. And I'm Tyler, I'm signing in, I'm done. All right, so you don't see anyone else's sign in. So if I go back to, I'm logged in as the athletic trainer now. I'm on the main screen. I click treatment sign in. I can see everybody who's signed in. All right, so we have some repeats here because of sometimes we pick the same patients, but you can see here, this is basically a running list of everybody who has signed in. And you want to check this ideally daily, but in reality at my high school, we're lucky if we're looking at it every second or third day. But you want to review this list for accuracy and then approve these treatments. So Tyler Smith, this is the note that he just signed in just right now, the one I did. I can edit this. So I can go in here and say, you know what, Tyler was also in for Whirlpool too. He missed that. I can click Whirlpool and edit his record, click save, and now that's going to be reflected. You want to approve these eventually. So if I click approve, I can approve all at once. So if I click select all, I approve all these. Just to let you know, once I approve these will all disappear from this temporary spot. All these individual records will go to that patient's file. And I'll show you how to retrieve those. But this is just like a temporary spot for your sign in. And then once you approve them, they get filed away in their individual files. So I go back to main menu and I'm going to go find Tyler Smith. I click on Tyler Smith. Now that I'm in his profile, I click his treatment history. I can see every time that he's been in. So you can see some of these were not approved yet, but this is, he's been in a total of 59 visits for 199 treatments. So the reason why those numbers are different, this one here is one visit, but 1, 2, 3, 4 treatments for one visit. So that's why these numbers are different. But I can see every time he's been in, and I believe I can email this too. Wow, I got a lot of them in here. I can send this by email. if they did a rehab card, this little rehab will pop up. And if I click on that, I can see his rehab card and what he completed and the time that he completed and date. All right, so that is treatment sign-in. So if I go to account options, this is a little buried. A lot of people ask us where this is, but if I go to, treatment sign-in, that's where this QR code is here. So you could print this out. This is a writable PDF or changeable, so you can put in your school name here instead of Bulldogs and hang up several of these on your wall. And this works extremely well. We use it every single day at my high school. The kids know, they hold their phone up to it. It takes them right to that treatment sign-in, and they can sign in on the go, or, you know, hit it right before they hop on the table, before they get taped, or whatever they need to do. So this is, again, not our idea. We had one of our users suggest this QR code idea, and it's been
If we download that and print it, is it like a one-time QR code that works every day?
Yes, it
Or
works.
you can laminate it and put it up?
You can laminate it, yes. Ours are laminated, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that'll be.
While I'm in here, this is where you would edit your treatment sign-in list. So you can see here, I'm just going to scroll to something. So we have in here manual therapy, right? So if I wanted to change the name of that, I could change the name of it. So we have prices associated with treatments in here because some of our members like to show the value of their treatment services. So these prices were based on some local PT facilities and CMS codes and things like that. So, but that can all be edited or removed completely if you want to do that. But I accidentally jumped out of there. So if you want to add something, like if you're doing cupping at the high school and we forgot to put cupping in here, I just want to make sure the red category name is perfectly typed in here correct. And then your treatment, you would put cupping, and then if you wanted to put a dollar value to it, you can. At the end of a season, you can run your treatment statistics reports, and it will show not only how many treatments you did, but the value combined of all your treatments. All right. Any questions on what I've covered so far? All right, so I'm going to take you to account then. So this is where you would put your license number and things like that you're going to have appear with your emails. If you're taking care of middle school kids, make sure you click that, because that way those grade levels will populate when you select a patient grade level. We go into account options. Again, we can spend an hour with this alone, but these are all the areas in which you can customize ATGenius. If you want to import athletes into your system ahead of time, you can do that using a CSV file. These are all the fields that you can import, or you can send it to us, which I recommend you just send it to us and let us import it for you. But if you're comfortable doing it yourself, that's fine. School code, address book, you could make an address book of all your coaches ahead of time, so that way when you email them from within the system, that those names will populate for you. Lots of options in here. You know, this is where you want to spend a little bit of time customizing your system to put your field locations and your sports and your sport level. And the rehab card template is here. The referral providers is here. I don't know if you guys would use us for preseason documents, but anything such as physicals or things that parents or athletes need to read and sign, you can put in ATGenius for them to download, complete, re-upload, or view, electronically sign that they've read it, things like that. So that's the preseason docs. That's where you would upload those. Your reminder days is where you would change that. This, again, all your sports level. Team members, so if you're going to add a another athletic trainer, this is where you would put them in here. It's not going to show the ability to put them as a read-only or Katie student here because this is a regional account, but your individual school can set up if they're a Katie student to limit their privileges, or if they're a read-only access person that they can indicate there for team members. Some people get confused. By team members, we mean healthcare team members, not athletic team members. All right, so this is, again, an area where you can really spend some time customizing your system. All right, I have a couple more things to show you. I want to show you our athlete portal. So believe it or not, at my high school, we do not upload all of our athletes into the system before the season. If we have a new athlete, a freshman athlete come in, we have this half sheet of paper that's laminated, and we tell them to sit down, get out their phone, and create their account. And that actually buys us a little time. If we're real busy seeing a lot of kids, and this is not a major injury that needs our immediate attention, we can buy a few minutes, say, hey, create your account. We'll be right with you after you do that. And that seems to work out well for us, but I realize that a lot of people want everyone in the system ahead of time. The other thing you could do is some of our colleges meet with their athletic teams as a group in person and say, everybody get out their phones, and we're all going to create an ATGenius account right now. Other schools handle it by sending parents or athletes email instructions on how to create their account. We have those instructions, so if you don't reinvent the wheel, we can send those to you to distribute to your athletes if you want to go that way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead.
Casey, will you go back to the creator referral? Can you do that before signing and locking a note?
A referral?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've recently changed that because we had some people having issues with the order of things. So let me
So
go
if you're
back to,
confirming, say you're trying to confirm a fracture, but you don't know if it's fractured. So you don't want to sign and lock until after you've seen the doctor's note.
right. So let me just go here for a second.
I mean, that's half the time, that's how referrals are. You don't know.
Yes, yeah. That was good. At the end.
Yeah, we used to have it in the plan section, but there was a reason we removed it, is because what we were finding is that you could indicate referral here and may not know which doctor they're going to yet, and you would be guessing which doctor they're going to, or you think maybe they're going to a certain doctor and then they go somewhere else. So we turned it into where you sign and lock the record and then add the referral afterwards, because you could do that immediately through the More tab, but once things settle out and you know which doctor they saw, that seemed to be better, because that way the referral was more accurate versus immediately. See, when we had the referral inside the SOAP note, you would indicate they're going to this urgent care or going to this doctor, and that turned out to be wrong, and you signed and locked the SOAP, we couldn't go back and change it. So that's why we had the referral after the fact, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. I just wonder if there's a way to, you know how when you sign and lock it, you get the More tab and then you can go over there and do it. Can you make it to where before you sign and lock it, you can click the More tab and still generate that? We know where they're going because we have doctors assigned to our schools.
Yeah.
And we know where so we send them to one of our orthopedic surgeons for x-rays and MRIs and all those things. So we'd like to be able to do that before signing. I mean, we could make it where you sign it with it in the comments and then add a follow-up note
But then
after.
the diagnosis is incorrect.
Yeah, it's just, you have to pick an injury type diagnosis. And if that's not accurate now after they've been referred and it turns out to be not a fracture or something else, I think that's our question. How do you?
Can you change? You can't probably change the injury type to later when you find out if it wasn't fractured when you thought it was, type of a deal.
No, that's why I would recommend, this is how I commonly do it. If I think something might be fractured, I just save the SOAP note and wait till that comes back confirmed or not, and I sign it after it's confirmed fractured or not.
So you leave it open.
But back to your original question.
Can you backdate a referral?
Yes.
So you could put it in the comments.
Well, let me talk to Brandon, our coder. We had the physician referral, including the drop down of providers, in the SOAP note and as a more option. And there was a reason why we took it out of the SOAP note. And I'll have to talk to him what the reason was. But for you guys, if you know where they're going all the time, that's, if we can maybe put it back into the SOAP note, that could work for you. I would say most people don't know exactly where they're going, and that's why the referrals taken after the fact.
Sometimes though, kids, because they have the choice, so sometimes they won't go. Right.
Cool. Thanks for looking into that.
Thank you.
Yeah. This happens to me all the time. Oh, I'm going to go see so-and-so. Oh, I couldn't get an appointment for 2 weeks, so then I saw this person instead, and then my referral was wrong. So, okay. So let's go back to Athlete Portal. So if I click Oscar Martinez, I click View Edit. This is what we call the Athlete Portal. So if you give your student athletes the ability to create their own account, this is where it takes them. They cannot see your SOAP notes on them. They can only see the portal. Same thing if you grant coaches access to your system. They can.
Hey, Casey, sorry to interrupt. We have another meeting that we have to go to.
Okay.
Can you send us the recording link and we can jump on
Sure.
from this point forward with that?
Yep, no problem. You're right about an hour, I think.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. So Blaze, just so you know, if you give coaches access to ATGenius, this is the only thing that they'll be able to view. They can't view your SOAP notes. The reason we have this is in particular for colleges, more so if an athlete gets injured on the road and the coach needs access to their insurance information and things like that. This is all there for them. But if you wanted, you could use ATGenius to collect all this information from your athletes so that it's in there, and you can give them instructions to go to this portal and fill out the information. And again, the preseason documents, if you plan to use that, this is where they would see what you've uploaded for them to either download, complete, and re-upload, or just electronically sign or view if you use that part of ATGenius.
Okay.
Right. I think I just had a couple other sections to show you. So if you're loaning out crutches or coolers or anything like that, you want to track those items, then you could do that here. So if you're just adding a new item, and this equipment list here is customizable in account options, but let's just say you lent out a pair of crutches, and you can put the name and when they were loaned out. And then when you go back to here, you can sort by what's not been returned, or if you figure you're not going to ever get it back, this walking boot, you can just report it as lost, and that's the end of it. It won't keep appearing on your list. The other section I wanted to show you was the daily journal. Again, this was a suggestion by one of our account users. This is just more of a notebook type thing. I know I have injuries in here, but this is not really what it's designed for. It's more designed for documenting anything that you've done preventative wise, or if you met with the football parents about concussion care and you just want to document that you did that, or if you spotted a hole on the soccer field and you've told maintenance about it a few times and you want to cover yourself that you did your due diligence and notifying people, you can put that here. And I always recommend that people, if you're doing any C-spine related prevention efforts with football or other sports, to document that you've done so. In 2006, at my high school, we had an unfortunate event where one of our visiting athletes, it was a football scrimmage, I think the first scrimmage of the season in August, unfortunately put his head down in tackling our ball carrier and suffered a C5 fracture, and he was paralyzed on the field and unfortunately passed away about a year later. And when there was a lawsuit regarding that one of the things that came up is what was done to document, or what was done to prevent this type of injury, and was there any documentation. So I always recommend the athletic trainers, if you're doing any prevention efforts, to document them, and even document for coaches. We just had a football coaches meeting yesterday, and I recommended to them to teach proper tackling technique and document that you're doing so. So anyway, this is the daily journal idea. If you met with your wrestling team to talk about skincare, that's something else that you could put in here. I believe that's everything. Now, you're set up as a regional manager, so as you probably know, you can change schools on the fly with that if you give someone access to multiple schools. As far as our support goes, of course, you have my email, but, our support, we're really good. We're trying to get back to people as soon as possible. And you can always click that or just email us if you have any questions that we can help you with. Is there anything I could answer for you that I haven't covered? I think you might be muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Apologies for that. During the trial period, I went through it pretty diligently and played with a lot of this stuff just to make sure. So I'm very comfortable with the system.
Okay. Did you receive the email that we sent out today announcing some of the updates?
I haven't checked that email account yet today. I just got into work, but I'm sure it's there. I will look into it and make sure we got it.
Yeah, sometimes that goes to a spam folder, but one of the new things we added was a lower leg questionnaire that you can send to athletes, and I've been using that for years to try to identify who's at risk for stress fracture. So it's something that they can fill out while you're evaluating them or right before you evaluate them to determine that. And then we've gotten a number of requests for a mental health questionnaire.
Wonderful.
And we're working on that as one of our next items. The one thing we want to make sure of is that questionnaire is not texted to anybody, so we're not going to allow that in case there's an immediate concern. So we're going to have procedures in place, probably with two-factor authentication that can only be done in person with the athlete, where the athletic trainer and athlete have to be on the same device, so that if you have anything that you see of concern, the athlete is there and you can address it right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop this recording.